A Doll's House by C.A. Wynn. I was alone in my transport berth, finally weightless again. How many years had it been? Enough that I'd come to miss it. Being trapped in paradise will do that to you. The last time I'd been weightless was after leaving Yigantu. That's where Lang and I went searching for our next adventure. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have missed weightlessness or ended up in paradise. Between the two of us, Lang is the better pilot. I suppose I should say was, since she'll never fly in space again. We'd been friends since being paired on a shuttle out of Struna 579. We even lived together for a few years. She was the sister I never had. It was around Struna that she first mentioned paradise to me. She'd gone into a trance watching marketing vids about faraway destinations. One of them really stuck with her. "Look, Osana, it's your heart's desire." She was smitten. I was less so, especially after I read the fine print. The indigenous people called the world Mmen. In case you're wondering how to pronounce it, the vowels are silent. It's a mouthful. I never figured out how to say it. The planet was 53 million light years from Earth, so far off the beaten path that humans had only just reached it. The people there promised visitors anything they wanted. It sounds far-fetched, but that was their pitch. Want a hot fudge sundae? It materialized the instant you finished the sentence. Have an urge to lie on a beach for the day? The sandy towel appeared beneath you. Eager to be a champion of Farseer? A tournament rose around you. I'd never set foot on a living planet before Olmehines. It had a consciousness of sorts. This consciousness let them reshape matter itself. That's as close as I can get to explaining what they did. The people were as much a part of the planet as it was of them. Their connection to their planet prevented them from leaving, so they had to invite others to visit them. I don't know when they started selling Your Heart's Desire, but that's how they attracted races from around the universe. By the time humans got there, Olmehines had hosted and studied dozens of other alien species. That's what they asked for, the ability to study anyone who came to live there. It seemed harmless enough, but that wasn't the end of the story. Being studied in paradise had a cost. Anyone who agreed was never allowed to leave. So much for a free lunch. Forever is a very long time. I'm lucky to be able to commit to something for a week. It doesn't take long for me to feel hemmed in. That's why I became a pilot. Maybe that's why zero-G is so comfortable to me. Lang, on the other hand, didn't have a problem committing to forever. "I've moved around my whole life," she said. "I want someone to watch sunsets with. Besides, Oz, it's your heart's desire." She delivered the words with a lilting sing-song quality. "But forever?" I repeated. "What are you going to do, explore the Crab Nebula?" she asked. "Well, I do have dreams," I said. "Come on, nobody dreams of that," she said. "Besides, you know they can't mean forever." She was wrong on both counts. I had dreamed of exploring places like the Crab Nebula, and forever was precisely what the people of Olmehines meant. How did I end up going there anyway? It was partly hubris. I was sure they wouldn't keep me if I really wanted to leave. If they tried, I'd stir up trouble, make myself a pain in their asses. I can be a little brash, but my hubris wasn't random in this case. The people of Olmehines wanted me more than I ever wanted paradise. "We've cataloged a few human social types," they said. "Like type A?" I asked. All 8 eyes glazed over. It's how you knew they were thinking. We called them the host. In addition to the oneness with their environment, they had something resembling a hive mind. Maybe glazed eyes meant they were communicating with each other. It was impossible to tell where their world ended and they began. While I waited, I studied their translucent green skin. Like the cloudy surface of a pond, it barely concealed their muscles and organs. They fascinated me, like seeing a living dinosaur in a museum. Their eyes finally cleared. Not type A, that's a human convention. We study social categories. And what category do I fit in? I asked. Broadly speaking, nearly all humans are inclined to follow others, they said. They value safety and security. You do not fit into this category. The next largest subset of humans seeks to lead. This type does not fit you either. They had it right. I wasn't a leader, but I sure as hell wasn't a follower. This places you in a tiny minority, they said. People in the two largest groups find it easier to commit to staying. Well, it scares the crap out of me, I told them. We understand the risk, they said. Still, your presence would enrich our study. The benefits would be mutual. Stay, if you will. What if we agreed to a short experimental thing? I asked. There can be no exceptions to the rule, they said. It was at this point that my hubris stepped in. I should have taken those words at face value. Instead, I was sure I could convince them to let me go when I was ready. They were getting something from me. Why wouldn't they give up something in return? So I agreed to stay, never intending to. That may be the biggest mistake of my life. I'd sell the place short if I called it amazing. The word paradise comes close. Imagine never being hungry, bored, or lonely. The weather was always the way you liked it, even if you loved storms. Food and fun were available on demand. You could be alone or have as many friends as you wished. If you got tired of anything or anyone, the next thing was just a few words away. All of this conjuring took place in the space between machine and organic manipulation. Whatever I wished for grew out of the walls, the floor, the air itself. Early on, I asked for a puppy. Since I'd just requested a new couch, the dog seemed to grow straight out of it. That's why the puppy became Corduroy. When you first see this, it takes your breath away. Most people go a little crazy with it. They come up with the strangest things as a test. In my case, it was a flesh and blood dog growing from the fabric of a sleeper sofa. If you asked Corduroy about it, he would only whimper and wag his tail. It wasn't long before my life went on autopilot. For the first few months, I rose each morning to a pair of eggs sizzling in a pan. When I entered the kitchen, bread would pop up from a toaster beside a freshly opened jar of jam. A steaming cup of coffee sat waiting for me. I only had to ask for it once. Until I asked for something different, that very meal would appear, and it was delicious. Every morning, the same perfect breakfast waited, until it didn't. Maybe that's why I started to think of it as a dollhouse. I imagined a young girl acting out her fantasy of an ideal life. Each morning this girl would dress and feed me. A new adventure was just a wardrobe change away. I became a doll with a dog bounding through my best life. As I expected, the bloom began to fade from the rose. At least it did for me. The only surprise was that it took so long. I'd been there for better than a year when it happened. By then, I no longer considered it paradise. The planet didn't care. Really, I asked. When I decided it was time, I was sitting in a restaurant with Lang. Our waitress looked like a human. She might have been someone who enjoyed that sort of thing, or she could have been a dupe. Probably a dupe. Hard to tell. Rather than asking for our order, the server brought out one of my favorite meals. The problem was, I'd grown tired of it. When I requested a change, the host appeared to ask their standard question. Are you not satisfied with your larb kai? I'm not sure why that was the catalyst. I'd answered the same question hundreds of times by then. It was their quality control. They were always trying to understand, to improve. At first, such things were endearing. Week after week, month after month, it became monotonous. No, I am not satisfied with my larb kai, I shouted. The volume of my voice surprised even me. I looked around at the others in the small restaurant. The few who glanced up quickly looked away. Lang had been ravenously devouring some pad thai. Pausing to scowl, she scraped food up from her plate without a word. I think I've reached my limit, I said, placing my fork on the table. This time, Lang stopped eating altogether. Her curled lip told me she understood what I meant. But Oz, it's your heart's desire. How many times had she repeated that slogan? I'd lost count, and I was sick of it. Lang had settled in. She'd conjured the perfect sunset partner, so why would she go? That this was the latest in a long line of lovers didn't seem to concern her. I'm leaving, I said, final as a hull breach. You can't, she said. I am, like it or not, I said. When I told the host, they were not amused. They never got angry. At most, they were indifferent. They acted as though one of their dolls had asked to be set free. Dolls don't get a choice. I had no power to go, and they knew it. I didn't expect them to give in immediately. It would take some effort to convince them. Planning and scheming were inevitable, but I could only hide so much. There was no such thing as a secret. Even the furniture had ears. Still, I tried. I plotted one escape after another. I couldn't tell you how many. Hell, I lost count of the years. One time, I'd even gotten as far as the cargo bay of an outgoing supply ship. They found me squeezed into a storage pod, corduroy licking my face. I guess I should have seen that coming. The dog was theirs, after all. How did the host respond to this? They acted as if it were a game. I'd get caught trying to steal a hover. They'd release me to start playing again. I never felt in danger, nor did it ever seem to bother them. At one point during this time, I was eating dinner with Lang. I'd bent her ear again, talking incessantly about how I wanted to escape. Lang interrupted me. You know, hundreds of years ago, people would watch these shows. It took me a few seconds to focus on her words. You mean the augmented hologram? Before VR and holos, she said. Two-dimensional vids on an electronic box. They would have story after story about this place. Olmehines? I asked. She laughed at my terrible pronunciation of the name. Not Olmen exactly. They called it Elysium, Shangri-La, Nirvana, the Promised Land. There were many different names for it. Like this world, they were all places where dreams came true. Being locked in a zoo for the rest of my life isn't my dream, I said. That's what I mean, she said. All of those stories had a reason why the place wasn't good after all. People would go there and be happy until they weren't. But you're still happy, I said. She nodded. Maybe one day I won't be. If that day comes, I said, you'll be just as stuck as I am. She became somber for a moment. Anyway, in those old stories, there was usually someone who figured it out. How to escape paradise, I asked. No, not usually an escape, she said. Instead, the hero of the story broke the place. Broke it? I asked. They'd find a weakness, she said. Something unexpected. That's how they got away. Those words rolled around in my head for days until I remembered the first meeting I'd had with the host. That's when they'd said I was special. I was standing alone in my apartment when that conversation flashed in my head. I want a roommate, I announced. The host appeared. Are you not satisfied living alone? I didn't think I'd have to spell that out, I said. What sort of roommate do you desire, they asked. Give me myself as a roommate, I said. I'm sure they got all sorts of weird requests. This was the first time I'd managed to confuse them. Their eyes glazed over for several seconds. You already live with yourself, they finally said. No, I mean I want a roommate who is me, I said. In our experience, similar personalities do not make good roommates, they said. I'm not asking for a similar personality, I said. I want myself as a roommate. There was the slightest hesitation before a replica of me emerged from the wall. Dressed exactly as I was, this copy was identical to me in every way. I considered requesting a different outfit before I realized I didn't need to be able to tell us apart. Hello, said the new Osana. I smiled. Hello. What do I call you? The new Osana asked. I laughed. You don't know your own name? Of course I do, she said. I just thought it might be difficult to tell us apart if we were both Osana. But we are both Osana, I said. And this won't be a problem, they asked. Not for us, I said with a wink. Her right eyebrow lifted the way mine did when I'd heard something that made me think. What should others call us? That's for them to figure out, I said. When we next saw Lang, she was livid. And how am I supposed to know which is which? You might ask. My duplicate said this as though nothing could be more obvious. Lang scowled. I'm not the enemy here. I never said you were the enemy, the Osana copy said. Lang looked at me. I smiled. It only made her angrier. If you ever have the opportunity, I do not recommend living with yourself. The experience is humbling. You don't recognize your own faults until you see them in someone else. During a particularly trying time, I made the mistake of yelling at my duplicate. Our argument brought the predictable question from the host. Are you not satisfied living with yourself? I will never be satisfied, I shouted. It's time to let me go. Their response was just as expected. There can be no exceptions to the rule. A few weeks into our twins experiment, my replica made a suggestion. We were seated in our apartment in the early evening. How about we paint this place? What do you think about pale yellow? She asked. We requested a few gallons of paint and went to work. As we did, the host appeared. You understand that we can change the color of your wall instantly. We wanted to do it ourselves, my duplicate said, smirking. We were a few hours into our efforts when I had a thought. Do you know what would make this work go much faster? The duplicate Osana nodded her agreement. More of us. I want 2 more roommates, I announced. Twice as many Osanas can get the work done in half the time. The host didn't bother to challenge this. From the walls stepped 2 more replicas. The new arrivals came complete with paint splatters and tousled hair. We were suddenly quadruplets splashing paint everywhere. Lang came to visit the next day. You really have to let go of this, she said. Let go of what? One duplicate asked. I'd love to say which Osana it was, but I couldn't tell them apart either. Lang looked at each of us. I don't know exactly what game you're playing, but it won't work. The host is not going to let you go just because you pretend to be insane. Pretend? Another copy asked. Even if it's real, they're not going to let you go, she said. Only time will tell, the third replica said. True, and we already know a way to shorten time, I said. Lang gaped. How? Twice as many Osanas can get it done in half the time, the third replica said. By the end of that week, there were 32 of us. We couldn't all fit in my apartment. We tried, but there was no room to move. So we spread out, occupying different flats and buildings in town. During those early days, I noticed a pattern. Our host no longer asked about my satisfaction with the way things were. In fact, the host appeared less and less with each new duplicate I requested. We were beyond 125 by the end of the following week. Lang came around less and less as well. I should have expected that. She'd become increasingly angry about it. The last time I convinced her to meet with me, we were sitting in the cafe on my street. One replica sat with us, sipping a tall mocha. Dozens more Osanas occupied tables nearby. There were still more walking dogs, hanging laundry, or watering plants on balconies across the way. How do you keep it all straight? Lang asked. My replica peered over the top of her steaming mug. What's there to keep straight? Lang frowned at her. I have no idea if you are the one I want to talk to. The duplicate winked. Why wouldn't I be? You know what I mean, said Lang. I want to talk to the real Osana. I silently observed the exchange, my hands cupped around my own warm mug. It's not like the host doesn't know which one is real, said Lang. We're all real, aren't we? The replica asked. Some are more real than others, I said. Lang scowled at me. You like me, don't you? The duplicate asked. Lang's eyes remained on me. It's not about liking or disliking. I came here with one of you. I just want to know which one that is. My forehead tightened. The muscles behind my eyes tensed. I hated doing this to Lang. She was right. The host was well aware of who I was. Still, I felt the illusion had to be maintained, if only to show my resolve. If you can't tell the difference, does it really matter? My replica asked. Yes, it does, Lang said. There's only one of you that matters to me. The duplicate Osana reached out and took Lang's hand in hers. Aw, that's sweet. Lang pushed her hand away and stood. Damn it, Osana, I want the real you, not some fake. But I am real, the duplicate insisted. When the replica looked my way, I offered a pout. Lang watched this exchange, then stormed off down the street. The duplicate got up to pursue her. Another copy approached my table. Is this seat taken? She carried a steaming cup of something sweet. I could smell it all around her. I extended a hand, inviting her to sit. You can never have too much of a good thing. She frowned. Can't you? I scanned the dozens of duplicates around us. I wonder how many dolls are too many for a dollhouse. As the weeks wore on, I requested more and more companions. We'd practically chased every other human from the city. Lang fled with them, refusing my efforts to make amends. Everywhere you looked, you saw my face. Duplicate Osanas filled the shops and nightclubs. Sporting events were contests between teams of identical players. The newest arrivals didn't limit themselves to the city. I had always liked the ocean. Some of them followed that fancy. Others headed inland. There were so many places to explore. Some went abroad in pairs, others in small groups. I lost count of how many Osanas there were. We were probably north of 1,000 when I next saw the host. I was sitting in a booth in the back room of an eatery. The smell of curry hung in the air. Osana waitresses came and went, taking orders and delivering food. They were all replicas of me, as were all the patrons. The conversations were many and varied, but the voices were all the same. The front door of the restaurant opened. Dust kicked up in the dying light. I could hear feet shuffle along the dirty floor. When the door closed, my eyes adjusted to the dim light. There I found Lang standing before me, a grin on her face. Beside her was the host. I couldn't remember how long it had been since they'd visited me. I stood and wrapped my arms around Lang. Is it really you? She asked. I backed away and motioned for her to sit. That depends on who you're looking for. You know damn well who I'm looking for, she said, taking a seat. I smirked. Thought you'd given up on me. Your friend here can tell you if I'm the genuine article. Thank you, Osana Aldid, the host said. Thank me? For what? I asked. For the lesson we learned, they said. As a member of a small minority, we believed you presented no risk. But by making replicas of myself, I said. People like you will never be satisfied with what we offer, they said. You offer lifelong imprisonment, I said. I'd never before seen any facial expressions of the host. That's why I was shocked to see a smile. Call it a prison, but most choose to stay, they said. You gave me almost anything I wanted, but when I asked for my freedom, I said. It is in your nature to rebel, they said. When you sent copies of yourself to wander the world, each carried that nature. Consequently, the risk of social upheaval increased. We can't expect to maintain stability with them here. You mean you can't maintain control, I said. The host barely paused before continuing. To remove them as a threat, we must ask you to leave. I smiled broadly. You're asking me? It is a request with only one answer, they said. I turned to Lang. What about you? The host raised their hand. Lang Lawn has not been asked to leave. Lang shook her head. I'm staying, Oz. I like it here. I nodded, searching for words that might change her mind. I will have to ask you to leave right away, the host said. Your transport is waiting." "What's the rush?" I asked, rising. "We must address some issues caused by your duplicates," they said. I laughed. The host did not. Lang stood and approached me. "Well, I guess this is goodbye," she said. I pressed my head into her shoulder. "I'll miss you." Lang kissed the top of my head. She laughed as she wiped a tear from her eye. "I'm probably safer here with you gone." I turned to the host. "What about Corduroy?" "Nothing may leave the planet with you," they said. Corduroy yelped once as I left. That's how I ended up alone in 0G. The transport was due to leave within an hour. It would take me to a human settlement on Nodalara in the Colvesian system. From there, I'd have to figure things out. A tremor ran through the ship. It didn't require years of piloting to know the feeling of a docking vessel. I glanced at the system monitor. Another shuttle had reached the transport. As the first human to leave Olmehine, I didn't expect anyone to follow me up, so I closed my eyes and tried to get some sleep. Before long, I heard a voice. "Oz?" I poked my head from my berth to find my friend floating along the corridor. "Lang, how did you get away? Make a bunch of replicas of yourself?" "No," she said. "That would have made no difference. I asked the host for 1,000 Osanas." I laughed. "What did they say to that?" She pulled me into a 0G hug. They said yes. End of A Doll's House by C.A.WynnSciFi.